There, welcome. My name is Tina Ducharme, and this is the Alignment Keys. On this channel, I team up with a celebrity and I channel with them their soul contract, and we go through their soul contract diagram, usually in the first half of the video. The second half of the video, I specifically pull some oracle cards, still channeling the particular celebrity or famous person I'm channeling, and we pull together some messages that will help the collective to, as they want, the celebrity who's crossed over wants to share certain messages with everybody, especially during this particular time or this particular energy. All of these videos are timeless, so if you're drawn to one, it probably means there's a message in it personally for you. Then at the end, we'll pull a final healing mantra. So I like to make these videos also healing focused and things that are very positive and bring us into alignment. If you're interested more in learning what the Alignment Keys is all about, please go to my website, thealignmentkeys.net. I put everything in the description box below. I also put below a short introductory video that describes the soul contract, how I put the diagrams together and the background of it, so you can get a better understanding, because I don't like to go into that every time I show a soul contract. So I also would like you to please subscribe and like the video. We're trying to get the messages out to everybody, my angels and teams and the people that I'm channeling. So there's messages for lots of different people. So we're trying to get the message out, just like anyone on YouTube is trying to grow their channel and make it applicable to a lot of different people. So without further ado, we are going to bring forward one of the greats, right? So, you know, I always say when I'm bringing through a celebrity or a famous person, we always have to keep in mind it's never about idolizing that person. It's about to bring forward their humanness. And the reason I think it's beneficial for us to look at the soul contracts of people who've crossed over to the other side is so that we can get a perspective, you know, besides just what we hear about them, but so that you can see, because they're public figures and we can read a lot about them, you can look up your own information and see how these soul contracts have been playing out for them. So today I'm bringing forward, as I said, Edgar Cayce. Now he was called the sleeping prophet, and he was so, if you don't know who he is, again, he is the founder of the Association for Research and Enlightenment. It's a nonprofit organization established in 1931. And so he was one of those first pioneer people who started bringing forth this idea. I mean, through many centuries, truth seekers, probably like a lot of you viewers who are watching, light workers, in many of our past lives, because I do believe in incarnation, we've been those truth seekers or people who brought forward the truth, but we were often persecuted for it or ridiculed for it, right? And so Edgar Cayce was one who broke a lot of barriers for people like myself who are learning about my own psychic gifts and teaching it to others, because it's something that we all can do. And that was something he also believed, that everybody can do this, and that we all have this innate ability to connect with source or your higher self, however you want to phrase that terminology, whatever that means to you, or God or Jesus, and that you have a direct connection, that you do not need to go through somebody else. We all have this gift. Now, the soul contract that I'm going to show you is some people have different types of gifts that they bring, and it's more easily accessible to some than others, and that has a more influential meaning based on your whole soul family and all of your charts, because I believe that we all incarnate with groups to help us grow and learn from our experiences. So again, Edgar Cayce, was considered to be the most documented psychic in the 20th century. He had over 14,000 documented cases on health, philosophy, religion, business, past lives, and future events. You'll see a lot of YouTube videos about predictions and prophecies that came true based on a lot of his readings. He also discussed Atlantis, talked about the Akashic records, and he did all of this through what he called trance channeling, where he almost went under an hypnotic state, and then was asked questions and would do readings on people and give remedies. And so then they developed where he would do readings on other people and put other people in states. And then that was well documented, all of these different cases. And so he discovered later in life, and we'll get to that when we look at a soul contract, about reincarnation. And that started to come through, which was not something that he believed in. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a soul contract and why that is and how that was part of his journey here. So I also want to talk about that. He read for Woodrow Wilson, President Wilson, Thomas Edison, Irving Berlin, and George Gershwin. He was very famous, and he helped thousands and thousands of people. Now, there are obviously always skeptics and critics about him, but you do not get as famous as somebody like Edgar Cayce without there being some truth to it. And I just want to state that right off the bat, because there's no way, that he couldn't have helped all these people. He gave medical advice. He helped. If you just, take a look at some of the things that he did and helped with. So I don't want to go. He doesn't like to go too much into the skeptics because that's part of their journey as well. So it's not about condemning them or creating more separateness, but it's about understanding that also how we weigh whether somebody is really legit or not. You also have to use your own discretion because we have our own guidance system, and it's very important that we just don't rely on what someone tells us, like me, not, always following through and checking and doing your critical thinking and verifying as much as you can verify. But it starts with kind of how you feel and if it resonates with you at a deep level. So I am going to share my screen with all of that talk here. Let me bring up his chart for you. So this is the beautiful Edgar Cayce. He was born in 1877. It's been like over 60 years now. He died in 1945. It's been over 60 years. So just think about, he was born during the Civil War time period, and in Kentucky, a southern state with a lot of, racial overtones and things like that. And that kind of molded a little bit, how you're raised and things like that do have implications in your soul chart because we choose those types of dynamics. Again, this is what a soul chart looks like. It's based off of your birth name. We know him as Edgar Cayce. I'm not aware of any middle name. So if he had a middle name, he would have another chart. This would be considered more of an overlay chart, but I'm not aware of any middle name. And this chart seems to very, very much fit who he was and what he came here to accomplish. So I'm very comfortable in using this particular chart for him. And so he also, when I do a lot of creative writing and channeling before I actually do the video, because when I'm talking to people and I'm going through the chart, I'm still not quite as experienced as to keeping this direct connection with him as when I am alone and I'm going through his background and I'm asking him in my mind's eye about certain things. So I have a lot of the notes written here. He is here, his energy is here, and he helps me to validate and navigate through the chart and to kind of pick through my notes as to what he wants to highlight. And so that's where the channeling comes in when I say I'm teaming up with a person and we're going to go through his soul contract. So He wants to acknowledge that he did not accomplish all of these wonderful things alone. He wants to credit a lot from his father. He had this falling out with him and some things that happened earlier, but then he brought his father back in. His friend Al Lane, who was a hypnotist, where it really propelled him forward, and it started to really work through once he met Al and had this experience, started to work through the spiritual side of his chart. Let me annotate my mouse here. So again, we have our physical triangle of our chart, and then we have our spiritual side, because we are a spiritual being having a human experience. And so we have this physical side, and then we have a spiritual side. And as we go through our life and gain our lessons, it can start very young, or we may never get to our spiritual side. It just depends on where we are and how we're learning our lessons, and where we are in the ascension process. So for him, obviously, this is somebody, I think he knew he had at least 17 other incarnations. And so he is kind of one of these older souls that I talk about, that even though we come in with the veil over us, he still was able to pull a lot of information from his past life. So it's a little bit easier for an older soul to move through their charts, and that's by design. Now, other people in his family, maybe they had more difficult charts and they weren't as able to move. His father was alcoholic and struggled quite a bit, but again, was helped him get to where he needed to be. So again, we all help each other. It's never done alone, and that's what he wanted to start off by saying. His wife of 42 years, which if you add the 4 and 2 together, I talk a lot about numbers and numerology as the charts play forward, and how it matches up with the numbers in their chart. And of course, he was married to her for 42 years. That ties up to the 6. 4 plus 2 is 6. In this case, he is a dominant 6. So his secretary, Gladys Turner, who was brought in on 1923, also 1923 adds up to that 6. She was a phenomenal stenographer and became part of, and was really, he believed, part of his soul family. And I believe that as well, because it was her organization and her categorizing all of these. He did many, many readings, and if it wasn't for her documentation of all of this stuff, it wouldn't exist. So again, it takes a big group of these people to come together, and obviously he had the gift of the readings and being able to pull in the knowledge, but he still needed help from all these people we don't ever achieve on our own. So again, he's coming through to acknowledge that and making sure that you understand he's not, again, this is somebody again who is, even when he was here, was not. We all have an ego, and we're all at different levels of the egos, and you can see different celebrities as I bring them through. Which ones are really into their ego and are more self-serving, and then ones who are not. In this particular lifetime, Edgar was more not in his ego as he was in other lifetimes where he misused his psychic abilities. So we did have some of that come through as well. And I'm hearing, yep, and he's kind of chuckling about that. He liked this picture because it's of him smiling, and it kind of shows the softness about him and this really wonderful energy, I believe. And so again, when he brought on Gladys, this is when he met Al Lane, and they started to form this really good group, and where he started to learn about reincarnations, and his readings started to take a turn to the past lives. He was doing a lot of medical intuitive readings and stuff before that, helping to heal people. And then his next level was the past lives, to bring forth this knowledge of past lives, reincarnation, the multidimensionality, how it plays into our current lives, this balancing of karma, because as you see on our physical side, we have karma, which is I call our opportunities for growth. It's not a punishment. It's something you choose your karma when you come here. And so there are experiences that you're going to have that you could consider negative, possibly, but it's meant to push you into the positive side, and it's meant to have you learn from that experience. And so then you're given talents to help you overcome your karma. And then you have these goals, and these are kind of these hidden agendas that we may not be, that we're not really super conscious of, maybe not until late in our lives, or if you have a soul contract reading, which I like to do, because that's where I can help people with what they came here to do, how they need to get into alignment. Because for me, alignment is all about, the keys to alignment is all about the keys that open the eyes to the inner self. So it's all about that perspective. And that's what I like to help people do, because once you're in alignment with your life, that's where true fulfillment and peace and letting go of toxicity and codependencies and things like that happen, when you understand how to get into that place. And we don't stay there all the time. Not even Edgar Cayce was in this spiritual world all the time. You're meant to fluctuate in and out. That's part of the human experience, but to learn your lessons and understanding how you can get back into those. So again, he had 6s. Okay, we see sometimes we have one set of numbers that we're in a aspect to work through. Sometimes we have a blended energy. It depends on what the soul chose before incarnating, what they wanted to work on, what they wanted to bring to the table. We all have something to bring to the table, whether we're famous or not. And that's what I want to get across, is that we all have a part to play. We've all played different roles in past lives. So we've all played the perpetrator, we've all played the victim, and we've all played the healer role. So it's very important for us to have compassion for all of those people that we see playing those parts in our world, and not creating more separateness by projecting hate onto others for what they're doing, even though it may be something that we disagree with. And I like to say that now with the especially with the Ukraine situation going on, we just had a solar eclipse. I think you're going to see the energy changing. This is going to get really interesting here now, and that's why Edgar came through, because it's a good time for him to really start talking about the Christ consciousness, because one of his prophecies was that Christ consciousness would return in 1998. And people were confused by that, because they thought Jesus Christ, a person, was coming to return here. And they didn't understand what that meant was this in 1998, the start of the new people being born and coming in. We're going to have more of what we call Christ consciousness energies. And so this is all part of our evolution and our growth. And that's why it was called the second coming of Christ. And so that has been rising. We've been seeing a rise in the divine feminine as we are moving towards this Aquarian age, which is all about this independent and being independent, but yet being part of the whole. And so we're all, instead of being more of this patriarchal, hierarchical society, we all have value, and now we're bringing together our value and bringing it together as one. And so that's what we're working for in the next evolution. However, right now, you're probably feeling, as Edgar Cayce is saying, you're seeing a lot of the dark coming out right now. So it's nothing to be alarmed. This is all meant to happen. And so anchoring your light is important. I talk about that quite a bit in all my videos, that the more positive we can be, we can offset a lot of the dark and help this to move. But it's all meant, it's like, it's the dark is coming up because it's this last ditch effort to try to hang on to the power, and it's going to change. It's just the way it is. And so we can all help it to come out. It's either going to be really rough, or as the more we can anchor the light, we can help to mediate and some of the destructiveness and the the horrificness of it, to try to help balance that out. And so when you have a dominant, when you're down, so you see he's got these sixes, a dominant six, yet he's got a couple of 20-2s. He's got a couple of this 14-5. So he came here with some specific things to accomplish. He doesn't have a ton of numbers to draw off of, so he's not going to be very scattered in his energy here. He has some things he is going to accomplish, and as he did, he was one of the people I can see work through all his numbers, learned a lot of lessons from them, and did accomplish his soul destiny. So the sixes are tied to the thought. The word is a thought. It's creator energies, and it's about an idea that you resonate with depending where you're at in your vibration. So a thought can be negative. If that's where you're at, you're going to attract to you thoughts that are negative. People with sixes tend to have more creative thoughts. They tend to be more on the creative side. But when you have sixes in karma, so this could be him struggling with the types of creativity that he needs to do what he wants to do in this life. And one of his big dreams, as we know, was to build this dream hospital where he could help people, because he knew he would give people advice, but they wouldn't always go and take it appropriately. So if he could get people into a center where he could channel the remedy and then help them to walk them through it and have them on site where they were better able to be healed. That was really important to him. But he struggled with this because sixes can lack risk-taking. They can lack the strong will required to be able to manifest what they really want. And this is all by design, because it's about learning how to focus and be creative in your focusing for sixes. They need to learn to not to have too many projects going on, not to do too many readings. He was overworking himself at times, doing too much readings. It comes from the 5 in his chart, this people pleasing. I'll talk a little bit more about this talent here. Even though it's in a talent, you can get some of the negative aspects. All these numbers have, negative and positive to them. And so he also kind of got hung up because he was trying to use his gift to manifest the money that he needed to build the hospital, which wasn't really working for him in this particular lifetime because he had done that in other lifetimes. But this kind of hindered him in that respect because that wasn't his path. And so sometimes service souls can get a little frustrated when they can't connect, trying to will that money to come here so they can help people, because there's really more about learning how to allow and trust in the flow and divine timing and those things, because that's all part of it as well. So the oil thing didn't work out for him. He was actually trying to read the oil and be able to make money off of it and to do readings on himself. And that doesn't work as well for people who are psychics. Their ego trips them up when they try to read on themselves. So they usually cannot do it very well. And he did not either. And that's by design, because again, we were under the impression he abused his spiritual gifts in other lifetimes. So this time he wasn't going to be able to get around that by using them again to manifest money just to solve everybody's problems very quickly with a lot of money. That's not what this was about. So, because I think people get confused because they're like, well, if I have $1 billion and I want to help people, I can help a lot of people with that money. But we find out that there's more to the journey than just that. And if you've ever watched Mark, I can't remember his last name, but on his YouTube channel, The Soft White Underbelly, go watch that, watch the work that he's doing. He's going on the streets and he's trying to help people. And he's finding out that just throwing money at people doesn't necessarily help them. So it's very interesting and very fascinating, but he brings this to light that again, we have these soul charts and we're on our journey. So 6s in karma also tied to addictions. He was a smoker, Edgar Cayce. Even though he did channel a lot of readings on health, and it said, as long as you do things in moderation, specific to your body, you can do some things like this. And he didn't end up passing away from that, although I still feel he died fairly prematurely, but he said that was more about him wearing himself out with the readings, because he was warned to only do 2 readings a day. Here's this 2 in his chart, and he was doing way more than that because of this people pleasing and codependency that comes from those numbers. Again, those are all put in the chart because it's not meant to be easy, and you're meant to learn from your experiences. So he couldn't raise the money off of the oil we were talking about to build this hospital that he wanted to build, because he was a little bit hindered by this physical karma, even though he had these great talents and this great goal. So the goal, which is all about spiritual exploration, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And for him, and so he did end up attracting, though, to him very wealthy, stock market people, the Blumenthals that helped him. He gave readings for them to help them in their success, and did that for others, and they returned the money to him. So as long as he did it in service to someone else, that was okay, and then the money came back to him. So see, it was set up to be coming in a different aspect to him, and so they did help him set up his hospital and the things that he did. So 6s are also about learning how to, again, be focused, and they can be good in business. He struggled a little bit in his business as he had some failures, tied again to the 2 in his 11 too, about learning from your failures, about having failures, being resilient in your failures and learning from them, which we call failures. There are no failures. That's kind of our judgment, that if people just don't make a lot of money and aren't, revered by everybody, they're, and their business doesn't, they end up having to do another business because they can't make a living. We look at that as failure, but it's really not. It's again, that's a misperception about, our culture. So, and so that's part of these karmic 6s, which was, again, they usually are so he does have them in talents here, but he had to work, remember, on the physical side of his chart first before he would really activate these 6s in his talents, which would later in life, more in his 60s. So this takes a long time to work through sometimes, but would he become more? He was very successful. Those 6s, again, are tied to that creativity, and he had that in his spiritual talents. And people don't know this about Edgar Cayce, but he was very much a world-renowned photographer, and he had an art gallery, and he was pretty successful at that. Now, he did have some bad things happen where the art gallery burned down and things like that, which we will attribute, again, to keeping somebody on their path. And sometimes it may look like bad things happen, but again, it may be the universe's way. That's why we always have to take those things with and really try to look at the silver lining about them. And so the 6s also can manifest, again, a lot of distractions. And like I said, he was doing too many readings. And when you have 6s, it's not as great a grounding energy to offset the 5, because he has this 14-5. This is very spiritual energy in a physical aspect. And he really needs some good grounding energy to help him with some of this from the 6s, but 6s aren't considered as strong. It would have been, again, and having it in karma would make him a little bit like I said, that unfocused to really gain that aspect of the grounding that he needed to work through this number a little bit more quickly, although he did work through it. Obviously, he did so many great things, and this was all by design. I just want to talk about everything wasn't perfect, everything, just because we look back now and he did all these readings and he accomplished all these things. This was a big, big struggle for him. And so we talk about this 14.5 in his talents, this is where this gave Cayce the ability to reach these higher levels of consciousness. The 14 through what we call reflected being, which is him learning about self-acceptance and learning about himself through others and connecting to others. And so this gave him this great ability to connect, not just to himself, but to others that departed, to angels and his higher self, he said, and which I would call source, higher self. And then, and so he really needed to learn the self-acceptance. And so he gravitated towards the trance channeling. We'll talk a little bit about that because there was something about that as tied to this 20-2 that I'll talk about here in a minute. And so, so the 5s in here again are all about being very psychic. So there was no doubt that this is a super, super psychic individual. He was able to, you know, they talk about he was slept on a book and then he could remember everything in the book. And so this just gives you the ability to connect to knowledge from higher realms and other lifetimes. This is the number. This is pioneer energies. This gives you the courage to speak your truth, because it's all about bringing forward higher levels of truth and putting that into action and being a teacher of the teachers, being a teacher who teaches at a higher level. So this is the talents that would help him to get focused, to be creative, to bring, again, the psychicness and the business sense that he needed to work on his physical goals, which is to expand his belief system, to expand into other realms. This is all about flexibility and movement and being flexible in his ideas and his thoughts. And the 2 is all about this emotional resiliency and the ups and downs. And so learning about your emotions at different levels. And so this can create a little bit of emotional instability, you know, but as he learns how to manage it, this is a beautiful energy. They never retire. They never get tired of learning more and growing more. This is a very expansive number, and it's a beautiful number for him to have. And obviously we saw how he just kept expanding and expanding these ideals. Now, having a 22, though, in his spiritual karma, this is where it was tied to him being born in Kentucky during the Civil War and steeped in this religious. So this is all about being steeped in rigid belief systems and being a fundamentalist Christian. I am not poo-pooing religion at all. That's not what we're talking about here. And Edgar Cayce was a big believer in religion. It was a way to spirituality. He still believes that can be the case if it's used properly. Just like anything, how it's used is absolutely. So then he would be, and it was by design that he would be given this kind of rigid belief, seeing a lot of racism and stuff, because you need to experience it in order to what he was doing with his talents and things, to really internalize that, what that truth means to him. Is this really the truth? And so he read the Bible once a year. He read the Bible probably almost every day. It takes a long time to go through the Bible, but he read it from end to end every year. And so that's part of that belief system. And this is about getting out of, when you have it in your goals, it's about expanding on that, though, and exploring other belief systems. And karma can be a little bit of a blockage about, you know, keeping those beliefs a little bit too close to your chest. And so, again, this is why when I was channeling with him and I was listening to some interviews with other people, the talk was, this is why he ended up being a trance channeler, because it was a way for him to disassociate from those rigid beliefs, which would, the fundamentalist Christians didn't have a belief that you can go directly to talk to God, that you had to go through like a priest or somebody who was more trained in that, I guess. I'm not sure how it works exactly, but this, for him, it was a way to disassociate from those beliefs and be able to do his work and not bring those beliefs in to, you know. And also he didn't charge for his services. There's a couple of reasons that they said, I might have mentioned earlier, where he had other lives where he misused the spiritual gifts. And then this way it was kind of a payback on that karma so that he would help people in this life and not charge them. But it is also tied to the religious fundamental beliefs about materialism being bad and evil and wealth. And so to get into the, you know, where they kind of had this kind of conflicting. So this 22-2 can, in karma, can be called the war to peace. And so it can create a lot of conflict because of those rigid belief systems that won't make a lot of sense, that you're, you know, because you're in this religion, you're the chosen one, but people in another part of the world who don't know about this religion will go to hell because they don't believe what you believe. And so it causes a lot of confusion and a lot of conflict. So this can also manifest as outward conflict if you have a lot of it going on internally. And so for him, I believe that this was, again, you're meant to have this because it's meant for you to break out of it. You know, he does have a lot of 2s in his chart. And so it's all about getting these different perspectives, being resilient to failure, and pushing him to find new levels of truth, which come from this 5 here. And so, and it's, again, I tied to this fluid and movement. He moved a lot. You know, he moved around, so that would give him different aspects of different perspectives from different people moving to different areas. And so that was a big help for him, and having those things happen to him that kind of made him like move around a lot. So again, having the 6s in spiritual talents, as we said before, he was a photographer. 6s in spiritual talents give you this great ability to be creative in any area that you choose. And so besides, you know, he initially 5s want you to hide your truth. And so being that he was this, him and his wife weren't really comfortable with him sharing with a lot of people what he was doing behind the scenes because of fear of persecution. He did end up getting arrested and, you know, practicing license without, you know, practicing medicine without a license, but all those charges ended up being dropped, and he was never convicted of anything because he did help a lot of people. And it wasn't any of the people he helped that tried to persecute him. It was just through word of mouth and the skeptics that kind of came after him. And that's always the way when the light starts getting too bright, the dark tends to want to come in because the dark is afraid of being annihilated by the light. So it's always this misinterpretation that when people say, oh, I'm afraid of the dark, it's you're feeling the fear of from the dark of being annihilated. And so a lot of light workers think they fear the darkness, but it's because it's an illusion. It's an illusion. You're just, because we're empaths, we pick up on that energy. And again, the 5s for Edgar would be him doing a lot of readings and not clearing his energy would be very hard on him. That would be my biggest thing that he needed to understand, was taking on all these energies would definitely mess with him. He did learn about that he needed to move to Virginia Beach. He got the intuitive guidance of being close to the water, which is very healing and very cleansing for somebody as an empath. That was very beneficial for him, and he knew that. Again, he did some readings on himself. He did, again, we're going to talk about the 11-2s because that's in his, you know, his physical goals were about this, again, kind of this explorer energy. Steve Irwin had this very much this explorer energy in the physical realm, but this is about him exploring. For Edgar Cayce, tied to his other numbers, it was more about exploring out these different spiritual avenues. Okay, so let's talk about this 11-2 and his spiritual goals, because this is about building a business, building a, you know, this is about somebody who came here to build higher levels of truth. And so when you see this number, let me turn over my notes as we're getting there. this would be responsible for Cayce aspiring to bring forward those higher levels of truth. He was also and to teach it. So he also was a teacher of Sunday school, tied to that, again, those religious beliefs. And then the 5s being that teacher wanting to teach what they know. 11-2s also want to teach what they learn. So and it can also be an actual wanting to, this is all tied to structure. So again, he had this dream of building this hospital in Virginia Beach, Virginia. The 11 is tied to the life to death cycle though. And this can manifest in people close to you dying. He saw his grandfather died. However, for him that worked out, he ended up speaking to his grandfather after he died. This is when he started connecting with people who had crossed over to the other side himself. And so, and he really credits his mom and his grandmother for allowing him to talk about it and be open about it, because again, 14-5s are 5 is very sensitive, and then they can get pushed down by others to not speak their truth. So he credits them with allowing him to talk about this, his family allowing him to pursue these gifts that he had. And also he found out later that his grandfather that he saw get killed also had some psychic abilities that was in the family as well. And so this 11-2 tied to, he had a son that died. His second son died at 2 months old, and he couldn't save him. And this was really a setback for him, and really started to question if I can't save my son, this really made him question a lot of his capabilities. But this was meant by design, because this is not about him going out and saving everybody. This is about learning having people close to you die is about learning the value of life. And you can't learn that unless you have these types of experiences. So it wasn't meant for him to save his son. This was meant for a learning experience for him. But he did. His wife ended up, because she was so distraught over the death of their son, she did end up getting tuberculosis, and he did end up being able to read for her and be able to help her through that, to survive that. So he at least was that kind of brought him back a little bit, because he was really struggling during that time. So and again, this was in 1901 was when, at the age of 24, so I wanted to mention the symbolism of the numbers and the years in our lives. So in 1901, which if we add the numbers 1, 9, 0, and 1, it comes up to an 11, right? In his spiritual goals, when he was 24, which 2 and 4 add to 6, this talents, he lost his voice, which is his 5. 5s are tied to the speech, and his voice obviously is very important. And so this is when he went and met Al Lane, a hypnotist. And this is where he discovered the trance channeling that we're talking about here, that how he did his work. And that was how he was able to, that was one of the few times he was able to diagnose a remedy for himself through the trance channeling and giving that remedy to Al. And so that's when he started to help people medically through this hypnotist patients. He started to channel and to give the remedies. So Al hypnotized them, but then Edgar Cayce started to learn how to do the trance channeling himself to give the remedies. And so they were, but I also want to talk about 5s are tied to learning about boundaries, because now I want to talk about 11-2s can be a little bit codependent. We get codependent on our family. And this is about learning to let go by having people close to us die. It's about learning to let go, and a new day, a new dawn, a new beginning. And he had different levels of these cycles where, he was more of a medical intuitive, and then he did the past life regressions. And again, these things that were going on with him had these cycles, and this was meant for him to be able to get these perspectives and be able to let go of these old ideas and bring on new ideas. And so the 5s can tend to be the people pleasers tied in with the 11-2, which can be very codependent. And so he did find out before he met Al Lane that his dad and another party were using him when he was under trance to win money betting on horses and things like that. And so then he had to learn about boundaries and to walk away from people who would use him for his gifts. And so he did do that with his dad. He walked away from his friend and his dad, and they moved. But later in life, he did reconnect again with his dad. You know, his dad learned those lessons, and then he was able to put those boundaries around him. And so, as we said, this was about him, you know, building that higher structure of truth and knowledge and sharing it, you know, with others. And so, what was the other thing? Sorry, I wanted to say, okay, and that number 2 is about the failures that he had. And they did end up closing the hospital. He did predict the stock market crash, kind of in an upscare way, but he did talk about, you know, this issue with money coming up when he was doing a reading for the Blumenthals. And so, you know, the hospital ended up, because again, we're talking about this karmic 6s, which he wasn't focused on running the business. He was giving away the people pleasing and giving things away, giving readings away, and he wasn't balancing that out. He, you know, worked that out a little later when he created his association. And so he would give away readings to people who couldn't afford it, but others would pay, because he learned that you had to balance that. You still had to, you know, pay staff and keep an organization going. And so that's what I mean by it takes time to learn those lessons, but he learned those valuable lessons here. And so his soul destiny, as you know, you can get the gist of it, was all about producing a new spiritual material, bringing forth higher levels of truth, and creating new spiritual techniques. So through this trance channeling and past life regressions that he was doing. But it was to be later in his life, because he was supposed to have walked the path of experience first before he moved on to that. So he wants to say he blames no one for his failures but himself. And those were his greatest lessons. Again, failure is a word he would not use. They're just lessons. Again, that was more my word. That's not his word. His was lessons. Some of the other things that he talked about, let's see, I want to make sure that, you know, I made sure that I do him justice here. Okay, it says, you can do anything that he does. This is something that he actually said, if you're willing to pay the price, because there's a price with stepping out in that pioneer energy and being okay with people, you know, coming after you to arrest you, but again, he worked with the greatest integrity. He had people sign disclaimers. Those are very important things to do when you're in this type of a business that maybe isn't accepted in mainstream, although it's really, now I can come out and talk about it. I never felt comfortable doing it through most of my life, but he's one of these pioneers who kind of paved the way for someone like me to be able to come on here and share some of these messages and to channel his energy. One of the things that I loved about is he had a dream that he was reincarnated in the year 2100 and that his works were still known. And he had that in one of his past life regressions, you know, where he talked about past and future. And so he wants to talk about his prophecies because some of them are misconstrued, and he wants you to know that the future is not fixed. So that is kind of evolving and changing. And because we have free will, that people can prophesize based on the energy and what they see, but it can be changed. So that's why some things come true and some don't. It's not that they don't have these psychic abilities, it's because things are changing. And so, like, I've had some readings. When I had my awakening, I went to a channeler, and that was how I discovered, you know, I didn't know what to believe, if, you know, there was life after death, but after talking to my loved ones who had crossed over to the other side and knowing absolutely without a doubt I was talking to them because of the information this channeler, Maureen Allen, She's a psychic who used to live in Minneapolis. I live close to there now. She's moved now, I believe, to California. But she was the real, if you find them, they're the real deal, and they don't need a lot of validation. She told me things no one else knew. My parents had relayed messages to her. Like I said, nobody else knew this stuff. You couldn't Google it. Matt Fraser is another, he's one of the most popular one right now, currently young man, very, very excellent channeler, and, Long Island Medium. There's some famous ones now. I used to deal with James Van Prague, and, he taught a lot of psychic classes, and, listening to Abraham channeled by Esther Hicks, and some of those, once I learned about it, really opened up this whole world. And I want to personally thank Edgar Cayce for being brave enough, fives tied to the courage and talents, being brave enough to speak your truth, because that's what the fives are all about, bringing forward high levels of truth and speaking it, and then teaching the teachers. He was a teacher of the teachers, and I think he definitely hit his mark, did he not? Mr. Cayce. So we're going to pull now some oracle cards for the viewers and bring forward some messages he would like to talk about. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now, because we're going to go to the other part of the video now, which I like to do. I know these videos get a little bit long, but it's when I'm having them here, the energy come through, we want to do a little bit of everything with them. I think it's very fun. So he's bringing me right away to the Sacred Destiny deck. And so we'll pull a card. I like to pull a variety of cards, and we'll see what he chooses here. Okay, this one. Okay, I think this one came out in Maya Angelou's, and this is all about flow. And again, sixes, we talk about this, there is a river. And this is a book that was written about Edgar Cayce, which I always have kind of a theme. And so the river is really about his favorite psalm out of the Bible, which is Psalm 46. And I don't know it exactly, so please forgive me. But it talks about the river as a stream, and about, God, pleasing God. And so what that is all about is a stream reference is kind of this metaphor for thought, and how you use your thought is whether or not you please God, which God is in all of us, and how you please, and to add fulfillment to the flow. So thought and your flow of thought is very important. I like to mention that it takes 17 seconds to break a thought pattern. So if you're having a lot of negative thoughts that keep coming in, remember your thoughts are not who you are. It's where your thoughts are telling you where your vibration is, and if you're out of alignment. So if the thoughts are not positive, encouraging, uplifting, your vibration's at a lower level. And so then it takes 17 seconds. So whether that's through meditation, counting, whatever you need to do to break that train, and then just pick your next thought, nice thought. So you reach for your thoughts, start to create your thoughts. That takes some practice. It doesn't come easy, especially when you have fives in your chart, because you get almost overwhelmed with thoughts, because you're very open to receiving thoughts. And so that's why clearing is important, and you can be very subject to others' negative. And again, I do want to mention, he did point out, he just told me to get back to this card. So the water, like I said, representing the emotion, and the moon. The moon is tied to the number 2, and he had a lot of 2s, 3 2s in his chart. He was a dominant 6 because he had 4. Anytime you have more than 4 numbers in your chart, that makes a very dominant number. But again, flow is important in your life, and that's when you know you're in alignment. So we're going to go to the work your light, and what we can do to work our light. And so 2 came out. And so, okay, so the first one is pillar of light. Your vibration is rising. You are the oracle. So he's talking about that sovereign being, You are the light, you are the, everybody has a part to play here. When he says you are the oracle, you create your own death. And I believe he said that actually, that you create your own reality. I mean, we hear a lot of different people talk about that, but he also was a big believer in that. He started to learn that lesson through all of those. Again, he had the 14 that reflected being by listening to all these different people and reading for them, really learning about himself and the truth of unity consciousness, that we're all one. And so you can see here how, again, like channeling your higher self, and this kind of, here we got this moon energy again, balancing those, seeing things from higher perspectives, like I talked about that spring, going through from the water through the rocks, which represent our obstacles. Very, very beautiful energy. But then he's also got trust the niggle. What is the niggle feeling trying to tell you? Now, this is when we get out of alignment or something's bothering us. And so that's when you need to go into meditation, and you need to go into a deeper way to get at what that is. Ask in the universe, show me signs. Why is this bothering me? What can I do about it? Because you will get signs here. And you can see how she's going within. Here, how she's she's holding her lower sacral chakra there, and going within where your body consciousness is trying to tell you. So very beautiful card. So we're going to go next to the wisdom of the oracle from the master wizard, I like to call him. And so we get the polar bears, one of my favorites. I have a polar bear picture up there, kind of a funny one. I resonate very much with polar bears. And so a leg up. And so this is about, we're going to read on this one. This is a 3 through 34. So he doesn't have a 3 or a 4 in his chart. It adds up to 7, but 7s are all about heart, the heart. And so he wants to talk about this leg up. So it's about receiving help, delegating authority, and interdependence. Because again, he had help, but he was able to delegate, all of those things. You've come to a point where going it alone is no longer optimal for you. Life has a way of presenting you with the perfect people to align with, who can give you a leg up during this next phase of your journey. So when you're ready to go to the next level, remember the master will appear. Help comes to you in all areas of your life where you need a boost. The trick is to accept that aid is freely given. When you embrace interdependence, allowing teamwork and independence to commingle, miracles happen. Now is such a time. Thank you for that message. Okay, we're going to go next to the secret language of light. Ooh, got a couple of cards here as well. So we have, this is tied to, let go is tied to his 11 too. This is an 18, which adds up to 9, and 9 are about endings. And that's why let go. So it's important to the sword of truth, but knowing when, and you can see this has the soul contract in the middle, and the flame cutting through that soul contract, but letting go, not hanging on to anything, going to the next level. And that is all tied to, again, here's the number 11, the remembrance. And so pulling in that information, that remembrance from other past lives, and allowing that to bring forward the knowledge that you're seeking, and the path that you're on, and knowing and getting that, knowing that alignment that we're talking about. Because this sword is all about that aligning. See how that spiritual triangle and the sword of truth is aligning with, And that's where all your power comes from. But you have to let go of all of that baggage and preconceived ideas, he's saying, and you have to be able to allow yourself to remember. I mean, he was so good at remembering, sleeping. He was noted for sleeping on a book and remembering the whole book. But this all comes from that psychic remembrance. We all have access to that. He says that's something we can all tap into. First, you have to believe it, though, because beliefs play a big part in what we can do and what we can't do, and what we believe is possible. And so he's about that whole saying where I don't want to, oh, not this one, sorry. So I don't want to, your belief, so believing is seeing, rather than, we always talk about seeing. First, you have to see it to believe it. And he's saying it's the opposite. Believing is seeing. Believing is seeing. And so we're going to go to the animal spirit oracle. Okay. So here is number 59. 5 and 9 add up to his 14, 5, and you see this beautiful starfish. And it's starfish spirit, open to infinite possibilities. Again, this is what we're talking about with belief and knowing anything is possible, and don't limit yourself. Anything, you can do anything. Like he says, if you're willing to make yourself look stupid, or some people aren't going to like what you do and they're going to question it. And but if you can open yourself to it, the universe will lead you. So beautiful. I love the flower of life, that sacral chakra in the middle here. Gorgeous. Oh, we're going to go to Keepers of the Light, the angels, which he had good rapport with the angels. And so we're going to see just what angels come flying out for us here. Oh, we got 2 again. So we're going to have faith, humanity, and benevolence. Stay calm, trust the good in yourself and others, see the light in the world. He wants you to be very careful, again, about what you're digesting. And so we know there's wars going on. We know there's horrific things happening. It's not about sticking your head in the sand, but how much of that are you absorbing? How much are you watching? How much are you, what you, like you said, what you think about those thoughts create the emotions that we feel that manifest things in our life. So again, you can see all of this blue, which is tied to the throat chakra. Blue, I see Edgar Cayce with a lot of blue. And he did, right? I mean, he gave so much to people and helped people. And but we also have that Krishna coming forward. He's come through on a few readings lately. I'm not sure why my screen is dimming, but here he is. He's also blue. So we're going to talk about the blue. Maybe we need to be looking a little bit at the shadow side here, but trust your spiritual guidance. Your commitment has been recognized. You are loved unconditionally. And this is about devotion, devotion to your passions, devotion to others. And so, yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And I can tell because my ears are really ringing. There's a lot of energy coming in. So I'm seeing the flashing. So we're going to go to the activations oracle. Oh, of course we had to have that one come up, and this one. 2 of them came right out. So again, we have the 11 as well. We just talked about your belief system, and your beliefs can be at a very deep subconscious level. Very helpful to have past life regressions. You know, I do some divine healing, and that gets to a lot of these unconscious beliefs that we've taken on as children, that people have projected onto us, that we don't even realize that are driving our decisions and our willingness to open up to new ideas. And so You know, there's a lot of people out there, that's what he's talking about. Don't be afraid to reach out, ask for help. This is the frequency of belief supports our sense of self-worth based on our gifts and talents and a strong connection to source. Beautiful. And more star energy, just a lot of stars. We know so contract is the Star of David, and we're just getting this wonderful starfish energy and this star as well. And now we have the divine masculine. Like I said, I saw this blue energy around him. He was very much a divine masculine, very idealistic, very, very protective, you know, but yet nurturing. So the frequency of divine masculine supports our strong, focused, and active side, allowing it to express itself while helping us to bring our dreams and ideas into form with kindness and wisdom. And you see the double twos on the top. He had a lot of twos in his chart. So beautiful. More blue energy. And so we're going to go to Talking to Heaven by James van Prague. Let's see, I add a message directly. And so the message is you have nothing to feel guilty about. And this is him talking about letting go of those lower emotions about guilt. People tend to project guilt onto you when they want you to do something for them, or they want you to be somebody who they think you should be. And guilt is a very lower emotion, and it's very low on the consciousness scale. So it's very important to be able to release guilt, understand when you're feeling it. So he's wanting to talk about that and point that out, that again, we're way down here on the staircase, and so it's about climbing up, but it's about recognizing those lower emotions, not trying to not feel them. It's very important for us to feel our emotions. I talk about that a lot so that we can transmute them. Where it gets a little tricky is when we're wallowing in them, when we're in victimhood and we're reliving something over and over again, making ourselves sick and just creating these negative dramas or playing out these dramas in our heads. And so I'm going to go to this Metatron Self-Mastery Oracle now from a master. Oh, so we've got all kinds of stuff. Okay. Oh, a couple of beautiful cards, and it's very, very significant. So again, those fives, and we've got 3 5s right here, 5 by 5, 55 and 5. And so signs from spirit with love, watching the signs. I talk about that all the time. Your ancestors are with you, your spirit guides are with you. We are never alone. We may feel alone. We may feel we're disconnected from source, but we are never disconnected from source. So, and then this ancestor card with the Native American. Infant Shala is my spirit guide. He appears to me as a Native American and brings back some shamanism and some of my past lives. And so it's safety, strength, and power. And so he wants me to read on the red, which is the root chakra, the safety and security. And so we're going to read on that and out of the book here. It's what he would like, what I'm hearing. So this is a master number vibration, and the energy of the red ray, because red colors are color therapies. And again, we have a lot of blue, and there's some red in this one as well. I love that feather, which signifies our guidance from the angels. And so the last card in the deck, red, grounds, anchors, encourages, and supports you now. You may have been feeling tired, depleted, unconfident, demotivated, or lacking direction. Red light comes to energize, warm, and stir you back into life. So wear red if you're feeling unmotivated, de-energized. So red is the shortest wave of light and the most earthly of all the colors. Emerging from this ancient elder comes before you who has seen everything and understands the ways of the land and its people. He is here to teach you as he has learned to master the potent force of red and use it for good in his world. He stands on red, sacred earth, able to feel his bloodline going back through generations, healed and whole. He will show you how to lead, show courage, and face whatever is there to be challenged or belittle or derail you. So you're here to face all of that. He asks you to stand in your own power and be sure of a solid foundation and safety, while others around you may feel scattered and fearful, because this is that time that what we're seeing, you know, all this fear, all this divisiveness, all of these, oh my gosh, you know, chicken running around, right? Chicken little, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Red needs mastering so that no blood needs to be spilled and no more sacrifices need to be made. The time for peace, this is tied directly to Edgar's 20-2, that word of peace. Time for peace, not war, is needed. No more fighting over territory, possessions, or what someone else has. He makes us look at what we may still have, parts of this that need healing within ourselves and in our family line. Because each of us, as we heal it within ourselves, we heal the outside world from the warring outside. His gaze scans the horizon to see any danger, alerting you and protecting you at all times, standing guard over you. He also makes those who wish to hurt another look to their own issues and repels negativity back to the sender. So again, it's about, again, fives clearing their energy, any psychic attacks, but you not projecting your hatred of what another is doing because you're feeding that negative energy to the other. You're actually making that person stronger by your own thoughts to that person. And I talked about this, especially with somebody like a Putin, who is very unconscious and thrives very much off of people's fear and wanting that power. Us projecting any type of hatred and fear onto him just makes him stronger. So the more we can stand in our light and in our love and give that love to those that are trying to overcome the dark is where we need to put our energy, because what you focus on, remember, gets bigger. So we have to focus on that light and what we want to see, not what's happening. So he offers the pipe of peace to you now. Whatever you are struggling with, any negativity that you feel, he says to you that there's another way to own the realm of red energy as he does requires great spirit. So the realm of red energy as he does requires great spirit. He has truly made peace with the earth and all upon it. Here, nothing can shock him, deter him, or hurt him. Feel into his energy now. Here is your helper for all that you may struggle with concerning base chakra issues, health, safety, finances, relationships, security. His presence here may also imply that there are energies of anger, frustration, greed, or lust around you. If so, again, let him help master lower energies and feel instead for the best that red embodies: conviction, leadership, passion, strength. As you embrace the learning of the red ray, he assures you that nature can provide all your needs and that respect for the earth brings her love back to you tenfold. Thank you, Edgar. That was an incredible message. I think we can all relate to and learn from. And so now I'm going to pull a final mantra to end the reading. And I thank again, Edgar, for being here and helping us talk about all these difficult, bringing his soul contract, so you can see his life wasn't super easy, and being such a spiritual master that, we're doing the best we can. So what we want to The mantra is going to be tied to rewiring the nervous system. So rewiring the nervous system. When the nervous system is rewired, you are no longer trapped in the memories of your body. You are the courageous hero or heroine of your present reality, honoring every moment of hardship as the means through which your infinite strength and greatest depth of character is revealed. As you rewire your nervous system, you are no longer responding to life from the vantage point of your painful past, but instead are open to each encounter being more miraculous than the moment before. Alignment is where the miracles occur. This mantra is ideal for adjusting to life after loss, healing heartbreak, and becoming more optimistic in a very dark time. So the mantra is, I find strength in surviving my traumas. We breathe in. I find strength in surviving my traumas. Please repeat that with me. I find strength in surviving my traumas. And you see that little triangle pointing to the heavens. I find strength in surviving my traumas. So that is the healing mantra. So thank you so much for being here. And with that, I'm going to end the video. Please, as I said earlier at the beginning of the video, please like, share, and subscribe. It's much appreciated. Edgar appreciates anybody willing to help get the word out about him and the work that he's doing. I'll also put a link down to his website and the people that are carrying on his work and traditions. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.